it's possible that we're live. It could be working. Oh, it's still setting up.
On Facebook, we're live.
Oh, you can see it?
I can see that we are live on Facebook.
Awesome. So then we're ready to go. So I'm so excited that you're here. I know that we booked this so long ago, and I'm like, wait, is it Nikki yet? Is it Nikki? I've been so looking forward to, ever since I've seen you present at She Breathes and at Boston Business Women. I'm like, wow, she's got that energy. Like, I just want to watch and see what she does. So I'll introduce Nikki in just a couple of minutes. But first, what I want to do is give a digital marketing tip of the week. And so the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to share my screen, because for the next probably 4 or 5 weeks, I really am focusing on staying away from the time suck that is social media. I mean, there isn't anyone who's ever gotten onto social media and went, oh, well, that was, I mean, unless you've got a strategy, you're never like, oh yeah, I did that in like 30 seconds. It takes forever because you're going down the rabbit hole and you're getting distracted. And so my productivity tip for today, which is in preparation for a webinar that I'm running on June 6th with Margot Crawford of Wave Productivity, we are putting together a workshop and a webinar of 2 hours of productivity tips. So spend 2 hours with us and then save hundreds of hours. So today, what I want to do is I'm going to share my screen and kind of show you what I do when I am trying to be super focused on social media. So first thing is, I go over to social media and I go, hello, do not look at the red notifications. I am here to post in a group. I am here to post in groups about, let's say, an upcoming workshop that I'm having. So I'm going to go to Facebook General. You can see my Facebook, right, Nikki?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so then I go over here to groups. There's 2 ways I do it. One is I have a spreadsheet, but the other way is I can just come over here to groups, and I can kind of look and see what my groups are. And there's 2 things I might be doing today. My focus might be, I would like to promote my webinar on a group. That would be one focus for the day. The other focus might be that I have set aside a half an hour on my calendar to go in and engage. So let's say I want to go over to the Polka Dot Powerhouse. Oh, this is a good one because I chose the events and sales one. So this one, it's okay to be salesy on. This one, it's okay to promote your events. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to post, and then I'm going to go, all right, next. And then I'm going to go over to another group and do the same thing. If I'm in WeBond, that's also kind of okay to sell. That's all right. But if I'm going over to, let's say Rise Above Noise, which happens to be my favorite group because it's mine. I'm not always going to be selly here. Here I'm going to add different helpful things. I'm going to share tips. So that is my focus tip for today, is to, number 1, know what your purpose is going in. Number 2, set a timer. Number 3, go over to your groups or have a spreadsheet with the links. Do what you're in there to intend to do. If you get distracted and say, oh, I didn't know Mary was selling that jewelry line. Let me go see what else she's doing. And look at how cute her kids are. Don't do that. Set yourself a reminder someplace else to do it later. All right. I get excited about that. I'm going to stop sharing.
Love it.
I am going to, what am I going to do now? I'm going to introduce Nikki. So exciting. So a brief bio for Nikki Bruno is the comeback coach for women. Nikki Bruno became a professional coach just a few years ago, 2016, after 15 years in the book publishing industry. Nikki's core coaching program is called the Epic Comeback. I love that name. She helps women stage epic comebacks after being sidelined by divorce, illness, loss, domestic abuse, or infertility. Nikki holds a bachelor's degree in cultural anthropology from Princeton University and a master's degree from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. She's authored several books published by Capstone Press. Nikki is currently a Boston-based single mom of two who loves scuba diving, international travel, salsa dancing, and helping women know and understand how incredible they are. When I asked Nikki, what's your superpower? It was so good because it became like the topic for today's talk. Her superpower is helping others identify and explore their superpowers and zone of genius. And I can't even tell you, so excited that you're here. And I think we can probably start off by I just would love to ask you, how do you, like, what is a superpower? Like, how do we even start this?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I want to express gratitude to you, Susan, first for inviting me to be on your awesome podcast. I think that you're amazing and I'm really honored to be here. So thank you so much.
Thanks. I'm glad you're here.
Yay. Okay, so a superpower. I have my own definition of what a superpower is and would love to share that. So a superpower is something that you are really in the zone when you're doing it. Generally, a superpower, according to my definition, is something that you're good at, something that comes naturally to you, something that is an internal resource that you can draw on anytime. So like a superpower is that edge, that advantage, that unfair advantage that you have that you can always call upon. It's always there for you. And one question that I get a lot is a superpower, if I'm good at something, does that make it a superpower? And my answer to that is absolutely not. So any given person is good at a whole range of things. It's not a superpower if it doesn't bring you joy, if you don't feel like you're in the zone when you're doing it, or when you are exercising it, or when you are contributing that quality or that action. And so, for example, if you're really incredible musician and you're amazing at playing the violin, but playing the violin doesn't bring you joy. Let's say that it did at one point in your life, but you're at a point in your life where it doesn't bring you joy. Because perhaps sometimes the things that bring us joy, or sometimes the things that we are good at become actions that people expect us to take, or qualities that people expect us to bring. And that can kind of lend a feeling of performance to it. And it can start to feel like you can start to associate that activity with pressure and with stress and with anxiety and with kind of others putting an expectation on you. So you may be really good at something, but if it doesn't bring you joy, then I would not classify it as a superpower. Yeah, so a superpower, something that really brings you joy, and you feel like you're at the top of your game, and you're kicking butt, and you love doing it. And often it is something that you take for granted. And I'm sure we'll talk about how to identify your superpowers. One way to identify your superpowers is to try to figure out, what is it that I do so naturally and so incredibly, but that I take for granted because I don't think that it's a big deal. Mm-hmm. So that's a long way of defining a superpower, but it's kind of an art and not just a science.
So good. So can you give me some examples? Like, I don't know, you or people that you know, what have they found that is their superpower?
Yeah, absolutely. So my superpowers include, my greatest superpower is, okay, I'm going to make a distinction. So with my clients, we talk about what are your superpowers. Another kind of term that I talk with my clients about is, what is your power source? So what is the source for you in your core that the source of all of those superpowers that you have. And for
Mm.
me, my power source is my belief, my super solid, passionate, spiritual level of belief in human beings, belief in humanity, belief in other people, belief in my clients, belief that every single one of us is born with gifts and power and incredibleness and awesomeness. So that would be for me the source of my superpowers. And a few of my superpowers are, number one, seeing the beauty and power in other people. And so my superpower is identifying other people's superpowers. It's actually pretty, it's really fun for me because I can get on the phone with someone or have a conversation with someone or get on a video conference with a client. And often within about 20 minutes, I have, through our dialogue, something emerges for me. It just happens. It emerges for me. This is what is absolutely incredible about you. And of course it builds over time. But I have this gift of seeing the beauty and incredibleness in others. Another one of my superpowers is my intuition. I have very, very strong intuition, in particularly interpersonal intuition, and kind of being able to interact with people or and kind of take the temperature in the interaction, or take the temperature in a room. Another superpower of mine is communicating in writing. Communicating in writing and using language really effectively. That fits into my previous career as an editor and a writer.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So there are so many other examples. Some people are.
I'd love to ask you a question sorry to interrupt. But you said one of your superpowers is intuition. Do you think that you were born with that? Do you think you've always had that? Or do you think that you've honed that over time?
I've always had it.
You've always had it. Even as a young child, you would be like in a room and just kind of get the temperature of what was going on and have a gut feeling about something.
Yes. So I am what's called an empath. And by an empath, I don't mean that I'm a psychic or a medium or I don't know, maybe I am, but I haven't developed it. But I'm an empath, and an empath is a person who tends to kind of take on the feelings of people around them.
Yeah.
And that is, I believe that that's inborn, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't develop and change over time. I have honed my intuition. So everyone has intuition. It's something that can be developed and honed over time. But people kind of are on a spectrum. Some people tend to use their intuition more when they're making major decisions, for example. Other people tend to make a spreadsheet, make lists, plan it out, be sort of more logical. I don't really like the dichotomy between logic and intuition, or logic and emotion, that kind of a thing. But it really is true. There's a range of ways of kind of interacting with your environment. And I happen to be extremely intuitive and also empathic. And so if you find that out about yourself, so I have been developing my intuition a lot over the last 2 years or so, after a period of time in my life where I was tamping down my intuition and not listening to it. And that was really awful for me. Yeah. And I have a really strong commitment to nurturing my intuition, listening to it, following it, which is the hardest part of all. Because sometimes when you follow your intuition, you have to make some really tough decisions, and you have to confront some things and that kind of a thing. But yeah, for me, that superpower was inborn. And something like writing, something like a facility with language. Again, to some extent, I was born with that kind of potential, and born with kind of maybe a highly developed, I don't know, receptors for language. Yeah. But something that, of course, I had to learn and develop, and et cetera.
Awesome. That's so interesting. I think that's true, that there are people who are tied in, and then there are people who are clueless about what's going on around them. That's just not their thing, right? I've often said my superpower is calm. So maybe that's my power source, which then allows me to use that to create superpowers, right? So maybe my calm is what allows me to dig into like a digital marketing issue and figure it out. Right?
That can totally be true, Susan. So the way that I visualize it is to say, so a good test for you to kind of figure out, is this the source of my power, is if you envision an outlet on the wall and you imagine, okay, I'm, for example, I'm feeling stressed about something, I'm feeling anxious about something, I'm giving a big talk tomorrow, or I'm about to have a conversation that I know will be difficult. If you're imagining that you want to recharge and you want to be in your best centered, most grounded self, and you imagine plugging a plug into that outlet, what is the outlet labeled with? So if you imagine that outlet has a label right under it that says calm, if you plug into that calm outlet, what does that do for you?
Yes. Well, and that goes back to, and I have to apologize, I just realized we weren't recording. And so I'm going to probably circle back and do some of this towards the end. We might have a flip over kind of a thing. I knew there was one more thing I had to do. Okay. So, calm, tech issues, they happen. But back to the point we were talking about earlier about being an introvert, right? And the power cord thing. So I do a lot of networking in the work I do. And we talked about my white power glasses people know about. I've talked about it a lot. There's crystal I wear that I hold like Dumbo's feather. And so I do like to come home to my quiet home, put my cord into that recharger and sit and do some crossword puzzles or just brush my dog and feel that calmness go back into my body so that I can recharge for the next, maybe that's a similar thing.
Very well could be.
Could be. Awesome. So would that be, I know the next question that I had for you was, how does one find their superpower? And would that be what you would say to somebody? Like, what recharges you? What is it that's giving you? How would I find my superpower? If I didn't already know, if I hadn't already done some work.
Right.
Would it be that?
Yes. It wouldn't be the outlet thing. That's for figuring out what the source of all of your superpowers are.
Okay. All right.
Super fundamental. But that's where in conversations about superpowers, that's where, at least for me in my coaching relationships, that's what we are reaching for. Like in partnership, my clients and I are kind of reaching for, like, what's that kind of one thing that if you plug into it, you're going to be unstoppable. You're going to be ready to roll. So to figure out what your superpowers are, I have a series of questions that have a really high success rate in terms of people figuring out what their superpowers are. And so one of those questions, I often ask folks, either in a workshop or in one-on-one coaching, I ask folks to write in their journals about this, or have a live dialogue about it. A live dialogue is fantastic. It just depends on how people learn and how people like to process. So some examples of those questions are, number one, what brings you joy? What brings you unadulterated, pure, beautiful, awesome joy? And another example is what energizes you. So for example, one of my clients, one of her superpowers her power source has to do with light. And so when she goes outside, it's almost like, it's just exactly like that, recharging. And when she does that, one of her superpowers is kind of bringing joy and sparkle to an environment. So like she has a really beautiful home, and she's got kind of tea light candles everywhere. And she connects with joy whenever she is doing anything involving light and sparkles. It's really pretty awesome. And so what energizes you? What brings you energy? If you do something, or like, for example, what if you're serving someone else? When you do volunteer work, when you're serving other people, either in your job or in your family or in your community, it brings you energy. You can just kind of feel the blood running in your veins. For some people, it's athletics. For some people, it's moving their bodies. So your superpower could be moving your body in a way that brings you joy. So another set of questions. So I have some clients who really get blocked, and they have a hard time figuring out what their superpowers are. How am I special? There are people around me who are saying, these are the 5 things that make me special, or the 13 things that are my superpowers.
Yeah.
And I often ask people, and this is such a great exercise, to think of 1 to 3 people in your life who love you unconditionally and know you well. And they have to be people who don't tend toward being judgmental, because the point is, you want people to give you feedback, not about what they think your superpowers are or what they want your superpowers to be or how they view you, but people who will say, this is what you're really awesome at when you are kicking ass. So think of 1 to 3 people and give them a call and ask them, why am I awesome? And a lot of people don't really feel comfortable doing that. So what I say is, like, tell them it's an assignment. Tell them that you're doing a workshop and you have to prepare this, and for some kind of formal event or something, and have them and ask that person in your life, what makes me awesome? What am I super, super good at? And you will very likely find, if you do this with more than 1 person, 5 people would be great.
Yeah.
That the same things will keep coming up. And then it's up to you to kind of figure out, take it with a grain of salt and figure out, yeah, this is really true. This is true of me. This one, well, yes, I'm good at that, but I get sick of people coming to me for that because I'm over it, or something like that. So that is a really effective way of handling it. Like I said, we often take our superpowers for granted. Very much so. You don't see the most amazing things about yourself as being awesome or as necessarily being unique, because you do it without even thinking.
Right. And it's hard too, because in particular, I work with a good amount of my clients are women, and yours as well. And we have a tendency to downplay what could be our biggest gifts. And we're just like, everybody can do that. Everybody can do that, right? Like, I thought everybody, like, again, going back to when we were talking earlier, I forgot we weren't taping yet though, about when the kids were little and going to see Loretta LaRoche, and she gave me permission with her humor to not have to try to be perfect, to not have to live up to the floor clean enough to eat off of kind of concept. And because that just wasn't something I was good at. And maybe these other people were, or maybe they worked at it, but to have permission to live in what I was good at, which was making fun times for my kids and letting them go and explore and not worry about their rooms. I guess that's similar. I don't know why I'm thinking about that today, probably because of the Viking hat you talked about. Which I'd like to see that sometime. You're gonna have to post a picture on Facebook with I think you've done it before.
I've done it.
You're gonna have to do it again and say, this is the hat. You'll have to tag me. This is the hat, Susan. Everybody who's watching can go look for your hat.
Yes. Susan, what you're saying about a tendency that women have to downplay is so completely true. And it's a barrier to It's a barrier not only to identifying superpowers, but also embracing them. And what this makes me think of is that another tendency that women have, and probably people in general, is that your superpower is something that you may actually think of as being a weakness, as being something that you want to hide about yourself. So, for example, let's say that one of your superpowers is speaking. One of your superpowers is commanding a room and talking about something and expressing yourself verbally. But it's something that can also get you in trouble. Can get you in trouble when you're coming up through school and maybe people call you a motor mouth, or maybe people say, well, you dominate every environment you're in because you're always the one raising your hand. And so your superpower is also something that can get you in trouble in small ways. And that negative reinforcement that you get, which I think is tragic, but it definitely happens, can actually prevent you from knowing that that's an incredible asset you have, because other people around you believe that it's actually a disadvantage, or that it's a weakness, or that it's something that's annoying about you. And that's unfortunate, because, and that's why I say that being really real with yourself and having the self-awareness and the knowledge, not only of your superpowers, but of the opposite of your superpowers. And I haven't come up with a word for this yet, but like the things that you're just completely not good at. It's so important to accept those things, and not necessarily to say, oh, I don't want to encourage people to just take something like, for me, I've said all my life that I'm not good at drawing and visual arts. But in college, I took a drawing course and I actually created some things that I was really proud of. So I'm not trying to say, take something that you think that you're not good at, or that you think you're not good at, and just throw it into a black hole and never do it again. So, but I do want to say that, like for you, Susan, accepting that you're not that mom who has the floors that you could eat off of, or that you have children who have perfectly clean rooms. What that is the other side of the coin, is that your kids are out having a blast, getting dirty, getting their hands into things. And so a superpower, it's all about your attitude toward it. It's all about how you play it. It's all about, like, if something brings you joy, that is your clue that is something that is fundamental and essential to who you are, and something to build, and something to embrace, and something to do every freaking day. And if other people have something to say about it, then maybe they're not your people.
Right. Well, according to the 4 agreements, other people's opinion of you really don't matter at all. You're only your own opinion of yourself.
Right.
So this is so good. And I'm giving this a lot of thought, because I spoke last week with Ileana Rojas, which you know, and she had touched upon this in a different way. And it's so interesting that this is coming to me day after day with different people who I admire and I love to listen to all of the time. So because I work with business owners and independent professionals, how would somebody apply their superpower to the work they do?
Absolutely. So I like to think about applying your superpowers to your professional life in kind of 2 ways. So there's applying your superpowers on kind of a general umbrella, kind of macro level. And then there's applying your superpowers at the micro level, like what you're doing, how you're spending your time day to day, how you're spending your work day. So on the macro level, applying your superpowers is kind of like, or at any level, applying your superpowers is kind of like taking an audit. So for example, I have been a solopreneur since 2007. I had for 11 years a freelance editing and writing business, and now I'm a coach. And during my time as an editor and a writer, I had gotten several years into my business. It was running well. It was successful really from the start, because I had come from the publishing industry with in-house positions. And I was starting to get bored. And I was starting to feel like, I'm I'm bigger than this business, as in there are things about me that are not getting satisfied by sitting in my living room with my manuscripts and the crickets. And so I kind of took an audit, and I thought about, what are my superpowers, and does the work that I'm doing now fit what my superpowers are? So the theory here, my theory here, and the goal that I encourage people to consider, is to spend as much time in your professional life exercising, your superpowers as possible. Because when you spend most of your time in what's called your zone of genius, and the zone of genius means I'm giving my superpowers to the world. When you spend as much time as possible, maximal time in that zone of genius, exercising your superpowers, you are going to be more profitable. You are going to be happier. Your clients are going to be attracted to you because you are going to be putting out the best of who you are. It is like, to me, doing this kind of superpowers audit is one of the first and best and most effective things to do when you're starting a new business, or when you kind of want to shake your business up. So I wanted to shake my business up, and I said, what are my superpowers? Communicating and writing. And yes, that is satisfied in some ways by being an editor and a writer. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Another one of my superpowers is intuition, and interacting with people and exercising that kind of gut feeling that I'm going to get, that I get, which was not so much being exercised. Another one of my superpowers is connecting with other human beings and helping them learn and understand how awesome they are. There's nothing more rewarding to me than that. My mission, is to make sure that all women know and understand how freaking powerful they are. Am I doing that by being an editor and a writer? No, I'm not. If I'm only editing self-help books, maybe I'm kind of working toward it, but I'm not using my superpowers. And that's part of the reason why I'm bored. Yeah. And it's also probably part of the reason why, like, I was making okay money as an editor and a writer, but I certainly wasn't kind of reaching my income potential. So that's what I mean by doing an audit. So you take your superpowers, here are kind of my top 5, and you ask yourself, does my business, or does my role at work, does my job description fit my superpowers? If the answer is no, you're probably in the wrong job, or you're probably running.
Well, that could be frightening, right? That could be frightening.
Yes.
But
yes.
I have to say, though, in the world that I live in, most of the people that I'm working with started somewhere and realized something wasn't right. And so they got drawn into creating their own business. I work with a lot of solopreneurs who have, maybe they didn't know that it was exactly what you're talking about, but they knew something wasn't right, and they knew something was drawing. And some of them did take big pay cuts, and they lost a lot of security, but they realized that they had to live within their own integrity, basically.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of the caveat to this is that I understand that some people at some time in their lives would prefer that their work be something that they can kind of put on autopilot. So, and I'm totally cool with that. And then there are other people who, if they are not in a profession that they're crazy passionate about, and that where that allows them to feel like they're serving the humanity in the way that they're meant to, they're going to be miserable. But I do understand. I mean, I have worked 9-to-5 jobs, and there's a lot of, there's security to it. There's a guarantee. Well, there isn't a guarantee that you're going to keep your 9-to-5 job. What I'm trying to say is, in my case, when I was conducting that audit of what do I want to be doing next, I'm feeling there's part of me that my editing business isn't satisfying. It was still another few years before I took the leap to coaching, because I had just given birth to my son. And so I was all about being a new mom, and I was embracing that, and was completely willing to be putting wanted to put as much of my energy as possible into being a mother. And so I was able to I didn't have really the desire or the energy to start a new business at that point, but it was the beginning of a longer process. And
Yeah.
I continued to be an editor for another, until 2018, until very, very, very recently, kind of alongside of being a coach.
Yes.
So that's a caveat.
Yes. So good. I could talk about this all day long, but I do want to be mindful of your time. I think you told me you have something coming up, something pretty exciting coming up as an offer for people. You have a retreat coming up?
I do.
Tell me.
So I have two things going on that I am so excited about. One is that I'm currently enrolling clients for my core coaching program, which you mentioned at the beginning. It's called the Epic Comeback. So what my focus in my coaching is, as a comeback coach, is that I help women stage epic comebacks in their life and work.
So good.
Yes, generally. And of course, an epic comeback, not just a mediocre comeback, but like an epic comeback, of course, implies that there was a pretty low before you get to the really high.
Oh my goodness.
And so I work with women who are putting the pieces of their lives back together and who are ready to get their mojo back and roll and stage that epic comeback after going through 1 to 3 years of what I call UFH, which is utter effing hell, involving something like divorce, separation, illness. So kind of could be cancer or hepatitis or something that really, really, really lays you out, or some kind of loss. So loss of a loved one, loss of your job. Infertility and infertility journey is part of that and certainly involves loss. And so I am looking for 16 women. I am enrolling 16 women in my 6-month coaching program. It is a hybrid coaching program of one-on-one coaching with me as well as group coaching. And so we will have 2 cohorts of 8 women who will be a supportive, life-saving, ideating, beautiful community for each other and with each other. And so that is happening right now. And another thing that is happening is that with a wonderful colleague and friend of mine, Melissa Maris, we are co-leading a retreat August 2nd to 4th. It's happening in New Hampshire at a beautiful, beautiful farm property in New Hampshire called Dragonfly Yoga Barn. It is not a yoga retreat. We will be doing some yoga, but it's not a yoga retreat. The name of the retreat is Hell Yes, No Way, Own Your Boundaries. So we are going to be focusing for the weekend on learning how, and then actually doing this, learning how to set and maintain healthy boundaries. And by the end of the weekend, we will all have a list of, these are the things that I'm going to say hell yes to in my life. And these are the things that I'm going to say no way to. And
I think that should be required learning for every woman everywhere. Hell yes, no way.
I totally agree.
Oh my goodness.
I'm all about boundaries. I'm all about healthy boundaries.
Yes.
And women most of the women I know, including myself until fairly recently, would get like a D in boundary setting. And it's a generalization, I realize. But information about my 6-month program, the Epic Comeback, as well as Hell Yes, No Way, the Retreat on Healthy Boundaries, information about both of those things can be found on my website, which is coachnikkibruno.com. Coach as in COACH, and then Nikki Bruno is NIKKIBRUNO. I am happy to get on the phone for a free pre-coaching consultation with anyone who's interested in exploring a coaching relationship with me.
I'm writing this down and putting it in the Facebook group. Free pre-coaching, did you call it?
Yeah, what I call it a comeback clarity call. What it is about a 20 to 30 minute consultation to establish whether
If you're a good fit.
you and I are a good fit.
So good. Oh my goodness. We could talk all day on this stuff. So good. Nikki, thank you so much for spending the time with me this morning.
Thank you,
I-
Susan.
I really enjoyed it. I feel like I can't wait to see you again. And then I know I see you at Boston Businesswomen and She Breathes, and I see you online. You guys, if you're not following Nikki online, do so, because it's always uplifting. Your face just glows. You're clearly living within your own integrity and in your superpowers, and making it happen on your own. I know a little of your backstory, and I know that when you have that backstory to make an epic comeback and then to bring other women along with you, you're doing the good work, and I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Susan.
I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording and take us off of Facebook.